Hey everyone, my fellow guitar players and future guitar players, welcome to the GuitOrigins podcast, powered by AIMusicLessons.com, the site that teaches you guitar. I'm your host, Greg Brulette, and I'm talking with pro guitarists about their journey with guitar. Today, I'll be speaking with my friend, Seb Bridges. He's a Canadian guitarist, singer-songwriter, producer, and if you had to classify his music, it would sit in and around the genre of dark pop. Seb's really interesting to me because, one, he's just a great guitarist, but he's also a wealth of information on image, branding, and how to find people interested in the music you write and get into their eardrums. Most importantly, he's a great guy with some great stories about guitar. So let's go.
AI Music Lessons presents Seb Bridges.
Seb is your artist name?
No, Seb Bridges.
Oh, Seb. Why Bridges?
Well, Dupont. Do you speak French?
Un petit peu.
Un petit peu. Dupont, off the bridge. Seb Bridges.
Oh, that's cool. You know, that's kind of like a Dallas Green City in Color kind of thing, right? Like Dallas is the city, and then green is the color, so City in Color. That's how he came up with his name, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I love talking about artists and how they came up with their names. Like looking into Jimmy Eat World, for example, his brother is like his younger brother drew a picture of him eating the world. Jimmy Eat World, fantastic band name. Like just stuff like that. It's fascinating talking to people how they came up with their identity and their image.
Yeah, and, that's really good.
Like what formed your identity when you were starting?
Throughout my entire life, like I've been like connecting things together. Huge fan of like Carcass, like death metal band. I'm also like a huge fan of like, I don't know, like Jethro Tull, and then I'm a huge fan of like Kate Renata, like these modern artists, like Trippie Redd, like so I have a lot of music taste, and I always want to like bridge them together, and I was always looking for that. Yeah, I was like looking for that like throughout my entire. I wanted to have a band. I wanted to like look for that perfect band name, and I was like, just like that would like mix things together. Like what's the thing that mixes together? And then I just realized it wasn't my name, and I was like, okay, well, so yeah, just came up with Seb Bridges one day and just went through with it.
That's cool. Like Carcass is 100% not reflected in your music, by the way.
Yeah. So actually, it's more like in some of the things that you'll hear is like sometimes you'll have drum fills that I literally rip off, or like some very subtle. There's a Pantera drum fill that I will always use in my songs. Because it's just so unique. Well, I like to put it there.
What do you feel? Just kind of hopping in there. What do you feel about like, as you're learning? So, for example, you're learning guitar. You kind of mimic your idols, right? So you look at guitarists that really influence you from certain bands, like maybe the guitar player from Carcass or something like that, and you'll take little bits of their identity and kind of form your own identity. And I guess like in some like bigger picture, that's kind of like what we do in life. We kind of look at people that we look up to and kind of take parts about them that we like and try and like work it into our own identity and make it our own. How did you mold your idols and like parts about their guitar playing into your own image?
So basically, I guess to me, it's more like whenever you really learn a tough guitar solo, for example, it kind of sticks with you forever. For me, like I never really forget the guitar solos I learn, and then like being a guitarist is just like I think Phil Anselmo from Pantera said, if you want to sound original as a band, you have to rip off 30, 40 of your favorite bands, and then eventually you'll sound original. So like what I mean by like I make music that's kind of sounds pop, but like inspired by Carcass is like maybe just the way that they they played a certain scale, you know, how they went from one note to another, and I could feel that, and I really like that, and I listened to it over and over again. It's gonna subconsciously come when I'm writing a solo. It's gonna subconsciously come when I'm writing a riff, or even when I'm like on writing different instruments, because I have this in my mind now, and it just sticks there. And oftentimes what happens is that like I'll write a solo, for example, and it's after the fact that I realize where I got the inspiration from, because I was just feeling the solo and I was just writing it by myself. So like
Right.
I'll write a riff, and and then I'll record. I was like, that sounds great, and then I'll be like, oh shit, this is the exact same 2 3 notes that was played at like 5:47 and Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. And then the next one is like, okay, that's Walk from Pantera. And like and I do have my like stabilizers, you know, like I like David Gilmour. I was like, he's like my grip, and then Dimag is like my other grip, and I just stick with both of them. And then from the rest, I just, it's off a feeling, and then I just discover myself a lot of times being like, oh, this came from that song, whatnot.
That's kind of cool. So it's kind of retroactively analyzing what you've written and saying like this feels like it's from another artist in a sense, and you're kind of integrating that into your work, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about so you mentioned that your musical tastes are diverse, like obviously from Carcass, and like that's not really reflected in your music. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
So what do you think about like guitarists that are learning? Oftentimes, like for example, when I was learning, all I wanted to do was play the Metallica Black album, and I really pigeonholed myself. I didn't play any sort of ska or reggae music until way later in life. But it opens up like a whole catalog of different techniques and sounds and fundamentals that you can learn with.
Mhm.
So do you feel that that's reflected in your music, like being interested in and being willing to play different genres of music?
Yeah, I always talk about my music. Sometimes I say like what I'm trying to write is like Pink Floyd, but make it mosh. Like and so that's kind of like, as I've seen that in the marketing book or something. It was like the way they sold Aliens the movie. It was Jaws but in space. And I was like, okay, I have to find mine. It's like Pink Floyd but make it mosh. So it's like it's I'm always trying to like optimize things, sorry, in life, and always trying to find like the best combinations of things, what is perfect and stuff like that. And so a lot of times I'll listen to a song and be like, what is missing there? And then that's when I try to figure out like where I'm gonna get that inspiration from to bring it to the next level. I think, for example, um, like I say, sometimes I find a really good, interesting electronic riff, and then I'm like, what is a thing that a producer wouldn't do right now? So I usually like pull my guitar and like put a distorted, disgusting sound on it. And then I'm like, okay, this is kind of fun. And then kind of experiment with that. And I think the thing about listening to so many types of music is that it allows you essentially to have those reflexes as you're writing a song or as you're playing guitar, to play something that nobody else has really played before, you know,
Right.
or didn't produce it that way, or stuff like that, right? So that's, I think that's why it's so important to like, I'm not sure if that answers your question exactly, but it's like
I think so.
yeah, it's kind of like you have to know your genres or just feel the music, and then understand where to add, where people haven't added before.
Yeah.
I think other bands is sometimes I like to like, I almost see them as like writing and having a recipe, and you're just having different ingredients that like usually don't combine itself. Like I love to add like Smashing Pumpkins like influences in a song, because they have like,
Hmm.
especially like from Siamese Dream, they just have this like super unique guitar tone, and they make the, what I love about Smashing Pumpkins is that they make the major scale sound sad somehow.
Hmm.
And I often try to bring that up in my songs as well. And then when I'm like, okay, it needs to have a little bit more energy, then I jump into like my Metallica, um um
Put on the Metallica hat.
yeah, put on the Metallica hat, you know. um or even like Hangar 18 by Megadeth. I think about this song like every single day because it just
That's
starts.
a Guitar
Like,
Hero song, right? I
is
remember
it?
playing that on. I was slinging that on Guitar Hero, and it's
Because
so fun.
you play Guitar Hero 1 and 2 or
Oh yeah, the OG ones, like the
yeah,
first ones that came out, and are
so
so much fun.
yeah, so I started at Guitar Hero 3.
Oh, okay. I remember playing Guitar Hero and being so pissed off 'cause, like I can play the song in real life, and I get like 66% on the song, and like what is this?
I know so many people who like became addicted to guitar because of Guitar Hero. You know, like had never heard of Metallica before. I listened to one on Guitar Hero 3.
Yeah, I think
Um,
that's how I found out about Buckethead and the
oh
legend of
really?
Buckethead. Yeah,
'Cause-
I'd never known about Buckethead before.
but like Buckethead, the thing is like, what a weird artist. Like what a
That's his
strange
identity. He
person.
likes buckets on his head.
He does like, yeah, it's just
And also, how clutch is it to play guitar the way he does without looking at his fretboard?
is that
What
a
a
thing?
legend.
Is that a thing he just never looks at his fretboard?
Well, he's got a bucket on his head.
Right.
He can't look. It's a complete power move. He's intimidating everyone else by saying, "I don't even need to look." He's just too good. Imagine if Buckethead could actually look. He'd be too good.
Do you think he looks for all the like 20 albums he records a year?
No, I think he wears a bucket all the time. He wears it in the shower. He wears, he wears it while he's having sex. He's just
Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, anyways, um, but yeah, I remember definitely remember like being like so many songs from Guitar Hero. Actually, for me, it was a lot of soundtracks from video games that got me into music in the first place. Like, I wanted to be a hockey player, and you know, being in Canada, like, fantasizing myself about hockey because like I just didn't play. And but what I did play was like NHL 2005, NHL 06 on like
oh yeah.
on my GameCube, and like these were my first introduction to heavy metal and stuff like that. And that was like I remember the thing that I love about metal is that you always, for me at least, and I know some people like that, it's like you listen to it, it's like this is freaking ridiculous, and they're like, it's pretty ridiculous. Like it's yeah, and you're like, oh, okay.
You,
And
you
then
mean
like
like you
you
mean like
slowly build your interest to it after making fun of it.
oh okay, I see what you mean. So like
Yeah.
introducing people to metal that don't necessarily like people that are into pop, for example, bringing them over to metal, they're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. But if you catch
Um,
them early on, they'll just fall in love. Like it's
if pop is mozzarella cheese, then metal is like a brie.
yeah, it's
Like
like
it's something. It's an acquired taste over a period of time.
a
It's like a
like
Gruyere.
yeah, I like aged brie, I would say,
Yeah,
because metal now is definitely like the conservatives of music, I would say.
I would say so. Like at one point, like in the '80s, it was like that was like the punk thing
Yeah, it
to
was
do.
the
Well, I
punk,
guess like
yeah.
the punk revolution started happening in the
Yeah.
'80s in Britain, but like that was like you were so far off the beaten path in terms of
Mhm.
musical genre. And I think a lot of people pride themselves in being off the beaten path. Like, no, I only listen to alt music. There's no
Right.
way I'm touching anything on the radio, and it's almost like a badge of honor. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's why also metal fails to thrive and like I mean we have Ghost as a band that's really like they're not doing nearly as well as any of those bands were doing in the 80s, and like it's really off the mainstream, and like one of my objectives actually as an artist, like even though my music is a little bit more like poppy and stuff like that, but um bringing back the crash cymbal, like where did the crash cymbal go? Like it's just not in music anymore, modern music. Like it's just and like all these pop songs, like crash cymbals are amazing. They bring so much intensity, so much,
they do.
and you just don't hear them anymore, right? So but I think partially it's because a lot of um like I remember I really love Dave Grohl, and like I would
Me
like
too.
hug him for like 5 minutes if I saw him, like a big ass long hug. But
That might be a little extreme. He might not like that.
yeah. He just looks so likable, but like here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like he said in a video at some point that like you have to record analog and you have to like you can't record digital, and like I understand why.
He's from the old school days of like in
Yeah.
Nirvana, they were pushing tape, and it was
Hmm.
just a different time.
And yeah, and I think the thing with them is like I understand a lot of people from the 90s and the 80s because like they saw the transition, like they tried digital when it was like early 2000 when it was rap,
Yeah,
and now that it's like you're like 95% of the way there for like most of the things you do. Like freaking Malcolm Young from AC/DC, he uses an amp sim. He and like you see the cosigns for the like amp simulator companies are like growing every year, by people who finally give in to it. But like um all that to say, I think that like as someone who like grew up listening rock to rock, and initially I was like pop music is crap. I don't want to know anything about pop music and stuff like that. Um, like I would try to I instead of going to my computer to try to find a place where I could record my music, I would go on like the closest thing I could find to like an analog console, and then try to get something in there that wouldn't sound good because I just didn't have the budget and stuff like that. So,
right.
and that was encouraged by all my idols that were pushing analog to their like young fans. And I think that's what's happening with heavy metal essentially, is that you have a lot of like your idols that are pushing it for having it the old way, which like never works in music.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of sad in a way that that's what's happening to metal.
Well, I think that that's one of the like the changes in music technology is the availability and affordability of being able to record yourself
Hmm.
in good quality. Like you can get so for guitar players that are out there that want to record themselves and even
Yeah.
just have like a catalog of riffs that you wrote or like
Yeah.
little ideas or something like that. Like you can record yourself very on the cheap. You don't need to go to a recording studio anymore and put down like $400 per hour, whatever extreme rate it is. Um,
Yeah,
and nor would
exactly.
you probably want to if you're just kind of ideating and thinking about like what you might want to write. You can get a cheap audio interface that just has even one guitar plugin. It just takes in like the same jack that you shove into your guitar, you plug it into your computer, and you can even open up Audacity, which is just a free,
Mhm.
open source digital audio workstation where you would just record yourself.
Yeah, and
Like this can be done for under $100.
yeah, and honestly, I mean, the thing about it also is that like, or you could just get like Ableton, FL Studio, or Logic, and they're like all cheap. I'm sorry, like really, like they're not expensive, like, and they do
Yeah.
so much. And I think I actually told you this before, but like Logic Pro makes me hate every program on the planet because it's so
Oh
well
yeah. Right.
designed, so user friendly that like it makes other program look like shit. Like I think the musicians are so lazy, and that we took over the digital space and made it so friendly for everyone.
Yeah.
Compared to other industries, like I just don't see it like that in other industries. Um,
There are certain recording stations um, like Cubase, for example.
mhm.
You open up Cubase and you start recording, and you need to do a tutorial. Like you need to
Yeah,
go on YouTube. You
right,
need to
yeah,
find out like what the heck you're doing. Same way that like if you're doing video editing, like Adobe Premiere, you open up Adobe Premiere, you're
yeah.
like, what is happening? It's
I
just not user friendly.
Yeah, I think it depends on the platform you're using, because like Mac, the cool thing about it, even though like they screw you over with adapters and all that stuff, like
Yeah,
it's a really plug and play type vibe that you can get with like Logic Pro. Like you can write, especially if you have some experience like recording before anything or whatever. It's very quick, and they try to make it easier and easier for people to get into music. And I think we totally underestimate how companies like that expand the amount of people who will create music. Because I
yeah.
had a friend who just literally like was taking Apple samples and just like putting them together like 1 2 3 and then making songs like that. It were just like samples, right? And
Yeah.
of course like the ego musician in me was like, oh, what a fucker, like. And
Well, because
but
it's essentially templating, right? Like you're
yeah, it's
just
like templating, right? Yeah.
you're like Frankensteining a song together from stuff that other people wrote. And isn't that
Mhm.
all of music?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
too existential. We won't go down that path.
Yeah,
But it's
but
cool. Like when you open up Logic, Logic Pro, you can open up Billie Eilish's song Ocean Eyes,
mhm.
and you get every single track of all her backup vocals, and you can solo out like all of her individual tracks that she did and play the entire song.
Yeah.
So definitely like artists are using these programs to create great music, like stuff that's consumed all around the world, and it's
Mhm.
something that you can get as well, and like relatively cheap.
Yeah, and also I think that I see them a lot is that, and we know this from purchasing guitars. It's like guitar, like let's say you want to sound like David Gilmour, all right, who has, let's say, what, like his you want to sound like the Comfortably Numb solo, which is probably a setup worth $100,000, right? If you include everything in the studio, roughly would amount to that, right? But if you just buy a Stratocaster and you plug into a Fender amp, you're already like 60% of the way there. And that's like maybe $600, right? And then
Right.
to get to like 70%, you got to add like 2,000. And then to get to like 80%, you got to add like 10,000. And then like the rest of the 5%, you're probably going to have to add 50,000, right? And it's like that a lot in audio, where just to get the last bits of it,
It's
you need
like
to add
diminishing returns.
yeah, diminishing return, exactly.
Yeah.
You need to add like a shit ton of money. But the thing that's great about music also is that it keeps reducing. Like digital is catching up so fast. Like there's a list of like I said, the amp simulators that you can get are getting better and better, so that like the gap between analog, let's say analog is 100% and digital is like 95, it's starting to really decrease. And so that the gap is just like you're gonna pay 30,000 to have 2% more in like
Yeah.
5 years,
And
right?
honestly, that 2% more, is it worth the all the things that come along with recording in
Yeah,
analog?
yeah.
Like, think about back in the day when they did multiple takes, they would literally be recording on tape, and then when like cut the tape is a term because they would literally cut the tape and
Mhm.
like take take tape, like scotch tape, and tape together the two ends of the tape to make it roll over these rollers and then do re-records.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
If you had $1,000 to spend, would you spend it on a really higher end guitar or a higher end amp? Like, what do you think is most
Oh,
important for good sound?
I'm definitely gonna say the guitar. And
You're
I
gonna say
thought about
guitar?
it for a second, but here's the thing. The connection to your instrument is so important. And I think to me, having a guitar where you just feel comfortable with, um, is the most important thing. And then the sound after that is, I think 90% of my guitar learning personally was done like unplugged, on with an electric guitar. Um,
Right, because
because I had
you're a Netflix guy, right? Like
yeah, I'm
you
a
like,
Netflix guy, yeah.
yeah. Tell people your process because it's awesome actually,
Yeah,
and
so
I've never done this
basically
before.
yeah, so basically what I actually I think I did it by accident because I had a crush on a girl and she was like watching Breaking Bad. And I had a crush on another girl and she liked the guitar. So I didn't have a lot of spare time, so I had to learn guitar as I was watching Breaking Bad. So
Nice.
so what happened is like
The motivation is real.
yeah, the motivation is real. Like I said, you never know lead guitarists if they're doing it for guitar or for attention. Probably a bit of both. But yeah, so then I started eventually like um just picking up my guitar and I was playing with Netflix and I got really good. And like I got better and I got better and then I started watching Breaking Bad in Spanish because let's
Like, I'm
keep
gonna learn
let's keep
Spanish.
I'm gonna learn Spanish while doing it. But the thing of why it's so good to listen to Netflix while you're playing guitar, and it can be better than not doing it actually, is because um first of all, you don't need to make time for it. Everyone watches Netflix, right? You just need to get into the habit of picking up your guitar while you're watching Netflix.
Mhm.
So you don't need to tell people like, "Hey, make time for guitar." You're not going to be like, "Oh, maybe I'll play 15 minutes today." It's like, no, you obviously are going to be a lazy fuck and you're going to watch Netflix at some point. just grab your guitar while you're at it and do these boring exercises. And then the other thing that's cool about it is that your brain is in a passive mode. It's not in a like super focused on it, which is the best way to play guitar, is that when you're not actually thinking about it. Um, like this is how you really learn a chord. You know, you don't learn a chord by thinking, oh, I had to have my like this finger on that fret and this finger on
Yeah.
that fret,
I
and
think
then
you do initially when you start learning.
yeah, like
Like
the
there is an
first
active
time.
component to it, and then
Mhm.
there's like muscle memory takes over. And
Exactly.
and watching Netflix, like you're forcing your eyes to, like, you obviously want to be watching the show, not your guitar, right? So
Yeah.
you're really getting acquainted with like how it feels versus how it looks,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think that's super important for guitar playing, because oftentimes when you play gigs, it's really dark up there, and sometimes the light's not on you, or it's like there's a strobe light going. Trying to play guitar with a strobe light going on stage is awful. It's like the worst experience.
Yeah, and it's like people need to experience this at least once, but like the basement is dangerous in guitar playing, like when you decide to play live, because like all the components of even if you do the Netflix thing, which is great, right? All the components of live playing and the sweat on your fingers, the
Yeah,
like little shaking thing. You know, talked about the strobe light. Um, you know, your friends looking at you, and there's freaking nobody in the audience, but like your two, three friends. You know, all these factors make it that like it's just so much harder to play live than it is
it is.
to play it in person, right? Um, so but yeah, Netflix definitely helped me.
What was your first show with a band, or was it your solo act?
No, it was with like I did a lot of high school bands for a while.
Yeah,
I I was really I took a lot of initiative. Like I was 12 and formed my own band, and like I couldn't find anyone in my grade. I went to like a small school, and I couldn't find anyone in my
yeah.
grade who played drums. So I taught myself drums, and I taught one of my friends drums. Then he didn't learn them well, so I fired him. So like
You're fired.
I was like 12. I was 12, and that guy, I believe it or not, he started bullying me later on in my high school years, and I still think it's because I fired the fuck. I'm not even kidding. But anyways, but yeah, so uh yeah, so it was a lot of band experience, I would say.
Yeah. Do you remember your first show?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was
It
actually
was good,
awesome.
like a really positive experience.
Yeah, we had
Cool.
a um yeah, I was because I like now the thing that sucks about being a guitarist is that as you grow older, people like it's just you become less and less cool. You know, when you're a kid and you know how to play guitar well, it's so impressive, right? And that was like
Yeah.
my first show. I think I was 14, 13 or 14, I can't remember. And we played a medley of a bunch of classical songs, classical, like classic rock, sorry. We had like a bunch
Were
of
they
Led
covers
Zeppelin in
or?
there. Yeah, all
Oh, yeah,
covers. And
covers.
it
Yeah.
was but it was like a 3-minute medley for like a school talent show. It's like there's like still a bunch of people, like probably 500 people there. And it was like I was kind of like the random one there because I was playing with like a guy that like two kids who both parents were like musicians and like you know like did music for a living, and then I was just like my mom's a nurse, my dad's a civil servant, like Beatles nerd, but like you know
Yeah.
but we played it and it was great. I still have the video of it actually, and like
Sweet.
yeah, it was actually like pretty good performances. The like we had tech issues, but like when I look back at it, I think it's just trying to remember that like we would like I think there was some Rush in there, you know, like I was like 14, 15-year-old like playing Rush with like I think the drummer was like 12. Like, you know, like it was definitely advanced to what we were doing. So it was a really, really fun experience. And then of course, you know, like the attention. Oh my God, amazing. So
Yeah, that's one thing. Like when I started, obviously, like I was really into guitar, and like being on stage feels great.
mhm.
And you don't really know what the feeling is like until you're there. And I think a lot of people have trepidations about going onto stage because, like, literally everyone is watching you that's there.
Yeah.
And your first show, like, it's probably not going to be 500 people. It's probably going to be like 4 people and your mom with a camcorder. But it's still like it feels good to be up there
That's very
and
true.
playing in front of people. And really the experience is matched by nothing.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
and myself, I always kind of thought about my favorite bands, and like I would be the only person that would know the guitar player in the band, just because that's kind of what I focus on. But most
Mhm.
people, they just know the singer. Like if you think about like Radiohead, for example, everyone's like, oh yeah, Tom York. But nobody really knows Johnny Greenwood. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, he's like relatively famous. He is famous, but he's a very famous guitarist. But then kind of like looking at singers and be like, well, they get so much attention,
Yeah,
and like 16-year-old me is like, I'm going to be a singer now. And it was the most awful experience of my life,
yeah.
because when you get sick, as I am right now, your vocal cords just don't work. And
Mhm.
it's like going on stage with a broken string on your guitar. And you're like, well, I usually hit that string. I'm going to try and find a different place on the guitar fretboard to play it live,
Right, right.
like, and just kind of wing it. And it feels awful. It is so bad. And like being in studio and recording when you're not feeling your greatest, it's not like when you play guitar and you're like have a bit of sniffles and you have a little bit of a cold. You can still bang it out and
Right, right, right.
still play, to the best of your ability. But there's just so many things with vocals that, it was an experiment that went wrong, and I'm truly a guitar player is what I learned.
Yeah, so guitar is great. I actually think guitar is definitely my favorite instruments, and I learn other instruments, and I really don't think any instruments beats guitar. Personally, even you can see with like the whole rappers right now, and right now hip hop is in the mainstream, but like they're putting more and more guitar in front of your face, and they're posing with guitars, and they just wish they could play, I guess, right? But like it's it takes a lot of time to learn, I guess. But um however, drums was really, really, really fun to play. And I think I learned drums, I learned piano by myself, and then when you're a guitarist, you can just say I play bass because, like, honestly, like,
Yeah,
you know,
2 less strings.
two less strings, and like I feel like, especially when you play in rock music, like the amount of bassists out there that are actual bassists and like don't aren't just like failed guitarists. And this is gonna sound terrible, but I mean, let's let's be real. Like I think a lot of guitarists do have those stereotypes about bassists. So yeah, but my second favorite instrument is definitely the drums, because it actually helped me a lot with like anger issues and anger management.
Yeah.
If you combine playing metal with playing drums, it's and I think there's some research on it. I gotta look. I don't take my word for it, but I think there's some research on the fact that like it acts almost in a similar way as like yoga and some stuff like that, because it releases all your anger out, and then you feel just fine after. Like it's
Yeah. Well, if you
um
think about drums, you're physically hitting something.
yeah, you're physically hitting something, which I think
Yeah,
is like
in
can
like a
be.
mantric way to the beat.
Yeah, and not to sound like fuck, but like that could be like a physiological need when you're like feeling anger, right? Like
Yeah.
to just attack the animal and then, like have it for dinner. I don't I like
Yeah.
so
I don't get that same experience with guitar. Like, it is calming and
yeah.
kinda cathartic, and I do feel like I get into flow when I'm playing, and does have, like, a calming aspect to it. It also at times has a very frustrating aspect when you can't get a riff,
Yeah.
and, you're just playing it over and over again, and your fingers start hurting, and, it can have it's a double-edged sword?
Mhm.
Hmm, two-way street? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's why I definitely encourage people to like I would say you gotta focus on one instrument and get to like the upper intermediate level, and then you can start learning another one. Because
Yeah.
if you don't, essentially you're gonna like there's a whole, learning a new instrument is always difficult, but once you learn one, um it really, really, really helps, in my opinion, in learning another instrument. So if you learn one, you know how to play it well, learning another instrument will be much, much easier. And if you just like learn guitar and you're like, "Ah, I don't like it, I'll try drums," I would encourage you to like keep going with guitar. Just try to find something you like, because you already build that, the beginner aspect of it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then once you're like kind of comfortable with, then you can try another instrument.
Yeah, there's a lot of transitive skills
Mm,
that happen as well, like rhythm, for example.
yeah.
Like learning, for example, if you're playing along with a song and you're like listening to the drum beat, the bass that's going along with the drum beat,
Hmm.
and you're really learning like where you fit in as you're playing along, which is super important and kind of transcends all other instruments.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And I
No.
also think the other thing was like, what are your thoughts on vocals? Because you mentioned like sticking to one instrument, really learning it well, then moving on. But I view vocals as an instrument, and it's an
Yeah.
instrument that literally every human has. Um, like, what are your and a lot of guitarists want to play and sing along at the same time, which is
Hmm.
like really like it's not even doubling the difficulty; it's like tripling, quadrupling the difficulty because it's
Yeah.
really hard to like same way as drums, where you're playing two things at the same time. You're literally playing guitar, your left hand and your right hand, and vocals, and it's really hard to match up. Like, would you? What are your thoughts on vocals and guitar together?
I contradict myself like all the time, so let me do it again. Um, I would recommend people to learning vocals at an early age is always great, and if you're learning it with another instrument, it can actually emphasize the instrument. But to be fair, I do see vocals as a bit of a. It's like there's every instruments, and then there's vocals. Like vocals is almost more of a sport than like music, like other instruments. I
Hmm.
feel like because like you can tire your voice out. You're like using your body. You got to be careful about what you do with your body. What I love about about like playing guitar is that you don't really have to give a shit about that. Like yeah, your fingers hurts, but like once you build the calluses, like little like hard spot on your fingers, right? You can you can go for hours and hours and it'll be
Yeah.
fine. And then like your fingers start smelling a mix of sweat and guitar
And
string.
string.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like so that's the cool thing about guitar, and I can never relate to athletes because they're like how can you just like at some point you're just done doing what you want to do for a day because you're just like you can't do it anymore, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Um
Did you hear Steve Vai? I can't remember if I told you this, but Steve Vai's latest injury from his practice regimen.
what was it
Did I
again?
tell you
Is this
about
because
this?
he held the cord for too long?
Yeah. Okay. So Steve Vai, kind of like for people that are unaware of who Steve Vai is, he's kind of like a legendary, prolific guitar player. Steve Vai has a crazy practice regimen. It is 8 hours a day. He splits it up 2 hour chunks. One would be like going through scales. Another one, for instance, would be spoken word. So he'll play guitar along with poetry, which is wild to me, but that's what he does. And then he will meditate on a chord. So Steve Vai meditated on this really insane chord that was really like involved a lot of finger stretching. And as you know, like as a beginner guitar player, or like any guitar player, you hold a crazy chord for a while and like it starts hurting. Like
Yeah.
it really like moves your muscles. So he was meditating on this chord and got like the equivalent of like hammer finger, like his finger seized, and he had to go for surgery to to relieve the tension in his hand. Um, but I don't know, like he's a great guitar player, so his practice regimen probably works pretty well for him. Like, do you have a practice regimen other than Netflix?
I don't. I
No.
that's so funny about Steve Vai though. Like I personally don't really like honestly. I mean, the sad thing about me is that there's a point for me, and there could be for some guitarists where like I just I just hit a wall at some point, and
Yeah.
it's just and to get over the wall, you need to build a gigantic ladder. And sometimes the ladder is just not worth it anymore because you gotta build it every single day, and you're
Yeah.
like, it's fine." So at that point, you can be actually like not done with your journey, but you can just decide, this is it. Like this is where this is as good as I'm going to get
Yeah.
on this specific
Also,
technique.
sometimes with certain things that you might want to play, like it's not even as simple as, well, okay, I just need to build a ladder to get over the wall. it's so many questions about like, how do I build this ladder, and like what skills do I actually need to get up to this skill,
Yeah.
or like what materials do I need for this ladder, like how tall does it even need to be, you don't even know.
Yeah, and there's a point, like, if you get a guitar teacher, for example, there's a point very possibly where you like, if you stay with them for, like, long enough, you're gonna get better than them, sometimes at
Yeah,
guitar.
that
And
happened with my first guitar teacher.
oh, really?
Like, it got to a point where like he went up to my mom and said like, I can't teach him anymore, like I've taught him all the power chords I know and he needs to move
Ultimate
on.
ultimate badass moment, like, that's like a drop the mic moment for the guitarist, yeah. I remember when my guitar teacher was like, he was a really good guitar player, but he came more from classical, so he was better at classical, but he went to tell my mom as well, and he's like, "Okay, this kid's vibrato is better than mine now," and I was like, I thought I had the best vibrato in the world, I outplayed him, nobody like, get out
Nobody
of here.
outplays him.
Nobody outplays my vibrato. And it's funny because some people actually did notice it in some of my songs, so I still think I really have a great vibrato. But, uh but yeah, just to answer your question, it's just, like, to me, like I said, there's a point where I don't really wanna practice anymore, so I don't think I've practiced specifically guitar in, like, probably, like, 7 years, like 5, 7 years, maybe no, maybe 4 or 5 years, I'd say.
Yeah,
And to me, what was the moment I stopped was, I mean, like every guitarist, I tried the Through the Fire and Flames, but I was like, I'm not even there yet. So it's not even
right.
worth it to try. But to me was the Megadeth Tornado of Souls solo. Um, that was the one that I was like,
That one broke you.
yeah, and I could literally, it's like a bar there, like 2 seconds of it. The rest I have it, I nailed it, and it's such a fun solo to play. Like, sometimes you just have these solos that are just, like, amazing to play. And I remember playing that song, and it was just so so tough. Like, that riff, I think I spent maybe 40, 50, 60 hours just on, like, that 2 seconds, and I never got it. So at one point, I
Wow.
was just like, "Okay, well, it's just not worth it." So, so that's when I just decided to kind of, "Alright, this is as good, as I'm gonna get," and stop practicing, and I still love playing
Yeah,
guitar, like, all the time, right? But I just stopped practicing.
I've thought a lot about that as well. Like I don't have a practice schedule
Mhm.
anymore, and mostly due to lack of time.
Yeah.
But I feel like I should, and it's really the only way I feel like I could actually improve versus
Mhm.
just like picking up songs and playing them, one here, one there. I
Yeah.
think like playing sports, for example, if you only show up, like for example, I picked up hockey again
Mhm.
and I got super into it. But all we do is play games, and
Right.
there's no time for us to actually like practice passing or shooting. So the amount of time that you actually touch the puck greatly decreases,
Right,
right?
right, right, yeah.
And I think that the parallel exists for guitar or really any instrument. It's like, if you're just playing live shows or just practicing with your band or just trying to play songs and you kind of forget about exercises that can help you improve.
Yeah.
I don't think that you're really going to jump that chasm.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's definitely true. I think
It's a time
it
investment, though.
it's a time investment, and also it's just like, yeah, it's also sometimes you can also just still, you can just accept what your technique is, and that's maybe the mistake I did. Is like, you just accept, okay, my technique is not gonna get better, but like, I could definitely play that riff. I don't believe people who are like, my fingers are too big or whatever. Like, no, you most definitely can play it. It's just, it's not worth investing that much time. But what you can do is then you can start going through different alleys in guitar, and that's what's so fun about guitar. Is I never learned the whole I don't even know what a word for it actually, like, when they tab the acoustic guitar with all the harmonics they make, and it's almost becomes like a percussive instrument. That's an avenue to go. Uh jazz is like, jazz is I use so much I use jazz so frequently in my life as a thing of like, I never want to learn this. Like, as it's just like it's a whole entire universe that like I just don't want to step into, and I'm just not ready yet. Like learning
Yeah.
jazz guitars, like you can keep going that direction, and then or if you're a beginner, right, you can or I would say maybe not beginner. Once you get your chords out there, you can actually decide if you want to go left, right, if you want to go a little left, but a little more to the right, if you want to go to the center, if you want to go up, if you want to go
Hmm.
down. There's so many options to go in guitar when you being.
I think the point here is being open to experiment
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like just try out a little bit. Like grab like a really introductory
Hmm.
tutorial on jazz, or try like a very beginner jazz song and like see if you like it. Try
Yeah,
one for
exactly.
blues, try one for metal. Just try different things, like everything in life, like you don't know until you try it.
One was really cool with me was like my guitar teacher was a little bit anti-tab. Like he didn't want me to only learn the songs by looking at the tabs they were online. So he asked me, we would like literally play the song in slow motion. We would play the same part over and over again, and then we would even listen to the mistakes that they did and try to see like to replicate that or if it's worth it. And then what that would do is that it would take away from the notes and bring the feeling of a song. And not only that, but like now I hear a riff and I can play it right away because I've been used to just figuring out what it is, right?
Right. I think that that's a really hard skill to develop.
Hmm.
It's called transcription. It's really, really
Yeah.
tough. Like you have to listen to something. And on guitar, there's so many different ways to play a single note. Like one note can be played in up to 6 different ways on your
Yeah.
fretboard. And you have to kind of navigate. First, you have to figure out like what notes are actually being played, and then figure out like in what position they're playing it, and
Yeah.
how they're actually moving their fingers.
So so
Without
so
video, just from audio, right? It's
yes.
really tough.
So the rule of thumb is that guitarists are usually lazy, and unless you're playing some like Buckethead or Angry Momstein or whatever,
Yeah.
um, when you do it by ear, you gotta find what's the easiest way I could play this, and then you
Yeah.
usually find it um, like for example, like in "Smells Like Teen Spirit," it's the dun 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 dun, right? You think like when you're trying to figure out where this is on the fretboard, it's like, well, he's playing the chord at this exact same spot. So it's the two notes that are there. And then once you do that over and over again, you can even like you can detect what string it is. Even if it's the same note, you can kind of feel what string they're playing. Um, which is also like a good decision once you're writing your solos to be like, okay, I'm gonna play the G string or whatever.
That's really cool. Well, let's wrap it up here. It was
Cool.
great to talk to you and kind of dig into how you learn guitar and how you really transformed into the artist that you are today. So thanks for having a chat with me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me.
You can find highlight clips for this episode on our TikTok at GuitOrigins. Search Seb Bridges on Spotify to hear more of his songs. And check out AIMusicLessons.com to learn guitar with videos, exercises, and play along songs.